welcome here to this Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora special edition spotlight broadcast here inside of the Heritage Hill Studios. Heritage Hill coming to you at the Brew House on 3149 Sweet Road in Pompey in the rolling hills of central and upstate New York. And of course, their newest location coming to you at Heritage Hill North on 628 South Main Street in North Syracuse, right there at Sweetheart Corner. I am picture in picture with Mike Bloomgren, the head coach of the Rice Owls football program ahead of the 2024-25 college football season, in our preview of the American Athletic Conference and in our coverage specifically of the Rice Owls. Coach, how we doing?
Doing great, man.
And you and I got to meet last year. We got to spend some time on another picture-in-picture. Well, I think we did it over the phone there when we spoke last season. But the opportunity to meet each other as you were coming into the American, now that you've had a season plus under your belt inside of the American Athletic, what's it going to be like for you to not be the new kid on campus when you go down to Arlington?
Yeah, I think we'll have an idea of more of what to expect at things like Media Day and a few things like that. Certainly looking forward to working more with our new commish, who I know everybody up there knows well. And, working with Jamie Hickson, who's over football and does a great job with our group. So really like the group of coaches that we have. Certainly went into it last year knowing that that's a talented group of coaches, guys who have succeeded at every level of football. And, knowing that this ball is really good in this conference, week in and week out. So I don't know that I was surprised by anything last year, but it is nice to have maybe our sea legs a little bit in this conference.
Yeah, and going through a season, obviously there's change that comes, right? So SMU is going out, Army is coming in. The American is no stranger to change. They have risen like a phoenix more than a couple times with this conference over their first decade and some change. When you were in the conference last year and seeing your opponents and really what this looks like, you haven't seen the other iterations of it because Rice just came in last season, but the iteration that we have, sans SMU adding in Army, how would you describe what American football looks like?
Yeah, I think it's still as competitive as anybody. I think the track record of this conference speaks to that. You look at the ability to make the playoff from here, and now with the expanded playoff, it's maybe the hottest ticket going to find a way into that opportunity.
And you talk about that, the expanded playoff. We know that it's going to 12, and the way that things look as we go forward here, they had a scheduling model where the highest ranked top 6 champions of the 10 FBS conferences for Division 1A football were going to get in, and then we would have our at-large of 6. So 6 definite that got in from highest ranked conference champions, and then 6 chosen at large. That changed with the Pac-12 news, so now 5 are getting in automatic, 7 at large. Like or dislike that scenario, because a lot of people within the American believe that this is a power conference, and now it seems like with 6 spots, it would have given the American pretty much a definite. Now with 5, it's going to be unique because Notre Dame can make it into this as well as an independent. So like or dislike the 5+7 rule?
Obviously we don't have any control over it. So I guess what I'm going to talk about is knowing that I still believe if you win this conference, you get a chance to go and play in that tournament. And that's really cool because I think everybody still knows how unbelievable this conference is week in and week out. And aside from what happened last year, history has treated this conference pretty well. I guess you look at UCF going back 5 or 6 years ago, and maybe they had a great case, and certainly in today's world, you would think and expect them to be in. So again, I just think this is a great conference. You talk about adding an Army team, which incidentally doesn't change much for our schedule because we were going to play them out of conference anyway. So it doesn't affect us much. But this conference is so unbelievable week in and week out. I'm just amazed at the quality of talent from top to bottom.
And when we look at the Rice Owls and we look at the history of this team, rich in history back in the day, for those that don't know just what has come through when we look at Rice University and the success that this program has had historically. But in today's world, as this team has grown, as this program has grown to be what it is at this moment. What can you say to the history of Rice that some may not know about when it comes to Rice football? And then in the here and now, do you feel like you're getting to a place where that football program is on the rise again?
Yeah, I do. So first off, you talk about the history of Rice, and you talk about going to Cotton Bowls and Bluebonnet Bowls, and one piece of history that people wouldn't know is Rice University is undefeated against Bama. I believe they're 4-0. So that's one of the few teams in America that can say that. But in recent history, won Conference USA in 2013, and had a little bit of a down spell. And we are fighting and clawing, and we've got a bunch of people that believe that we are the best team we've been, and we are so excited about this college football season.
Mike Bloomgren here with us, the Rice Owls head football coach, as we head into the 2024-25 season. When we look at the football schedule, like you said, Army you were going to play anyways, so that doesn't really affect you. But when we look at some of these other matchups that you have, because the model is now different, right? When we saw conferences years and years ago, a conference showed its notoriety, it showed its status amongst other conferences when they could add at least 12, split into divisions, and show that, okay, we're going to have a champion. We have two divisions. We have at least 12. We don't have to apply for a waiver. Now we're seeing conferences go the opposite direction. Let's have no divisions. Let's just put everybody in the same pot, take the top two teams. What are your thoughts on that? Because the scheduling model obviously changes when you get rid of divisions. You didn't have to go through that once again in the American because the American dissolved that before you came in. But what are your thoughts about the fact that the American, as well as many conferences across this country, have made the decision to dissolve divisions and just take the top two?
Yeah, I think that when you look at it, and at least we kept our regional ties, right? Like the fact that we're going to play UTSA every year, and the fact that we're going to play Tulane every year. Those are really cool things to maybe get some rivalry sparked back up that were really big to this program. Certainly, when you talk about schools like Tulane for years and years and years, and UTSA, it hasn't been a rivalry yet because we haven't made it one. And that's we're excited for that challenge again this year against Jeff Traylor and his well-coached team. So I just think that, when you talk about like the top two teams playing in the championship game, that's probably the way it should be. Now, in terms of not having divisions and not playing people the same group every year, plus one or two from the other side, that's an interesting concept that, again, has been tried in a couple conferences for years and seems to, like you say, it's becoming the way of the world right now. So I don't know. I know this, like as the media predicts this conference, the names that I keep seeing at the top, we get an opportunity to play all of them. So whether you're talking about Memphis and South Florida and then some combination of Tulane or UTSA being picked to win this thing, we get to see all four of them. So you know what? Like we're going to earn our right to get there, whether it's by divisions or whether it's the top two. So once again, I don't know if it matters much for the Rice Owls because of how the schedule lined up this year, but we'd sure like the opportunity to play in that conference championship game.
Yeah, and I know you got to obviously just play those that are in front of you, but when we look at your schedule within the conference, you'll be playing Charlotte. You'll also be playing Navy, South Florida, and UTSA at home. On the road, UAB, Army, Memphis, and Tulane. You mentioned being able to perennially go up against UTSA and Tulane, and in the state of Texas, where the American has called its home, moving during COVID from Rhode Island down to Irving, Texas, knowing that Rice UTSA in state is one of those things that this conference has tried to do to say, okay, Charlotte ECU, Rice UTSA, to try and create these rivalries of teams that are within the same state or within close proximity to each other. What can Rice UTSA become for this conference, in your opinion?
I think it could be a marquee game every year because I think, again, Jeff's doing such a great job. They've made a commitment to facilities there. And as we continue to build, again, we got to win some to make this thing a rivalry. But we're certainly a different team than we were even just a couple of years ago. So I think you got a chance. And anytime you have an in-state battle of any kind, so many of the kids played against each other in high school, might have been teammates, and they know each other well. And in a state where football is kind of king, like it is in the state of Texas, it's a big deal.
When we talk about the history and the success and some of the things that you mentioned, and we talk about now, like you said, we got to win some games. You got to find your way back up the mountain. What is happening within your program right now that believes that the Owls are starting to take flight in the direction that you want to go?
I think just watching our kids work, you don't have to do much more than come out here at 6 a.m. and watch one of these workouts, or to hear these guys talk about the leadership and some of the things that they're doing through a program where we're doing some mindset training or what they're doing on their own. If you walk the halls of our building right now at 3:19, or 5 o'clock for that matter, they got here at 6 a.m. and they'll still be in these halls, just walking around and doing things, watching film, working together. Uh, this afternoon we'll have some Pilates in there. It's amazing. The guys just show up. It's all voluntary stuff. They just keep showing up because they really love each other, which is awesome. But they also believe, and I think when they understand our goals of shooting for a third straight bowl game in a
Yeah.
row and a chance to compete for this conference title and what we all respect this conference so much. Those are lofty goals, and we got to make sure that if we're going to have those goals and aspirations, that our work matches up to them.
Yeah, and putting that work in, like you said, all you have to do is come and see an early morning practice to see that. What else are these guys doing that we're not going to see in the weight room? We're not going to see on a track. We're not going to see in film study. What are things that you see with the caliber of student athlete that you go out and your staff goes out to get? Some of those invisible, so to speak, to the football field pieces that you think are seen throughout your student athletes, a common theme of who you're recruiting essentially.
Yeah, they're brilliant, right? Like we talk a lot about intellectual brutality around here. And so when you don't have to talk to any of our kids for too long to realize that they are incredibly sharp on and off the field. And they're putting in that extra time in the classroom right now or the film room so that they can make sure that they have all the answers to the tests. And it's kind of how they live their lives. They always want to be over prepared. But the things that I see right now is, we returned a good number of starters. Like when you return 6 starters on offense and 8 starters on defense, that's a big deal, especially when your offensive number doesn't even count Dean Connors, who to me might be the most exciting player in the American Conference. So that's fun stuff. But then you inject these transfers,
Yeah.
and especially the quarterback, somebody that people in this conference should know well, with EJ Warner coming from Temple. And then you get some of the late additions that we were able to get, an offensive lineman and David Stickle from Florida State, an offensive lineman from Georgia and Chad Lindbergh, a corner from Fabian Marks that started a bunch of games for them, a receiver from Florida and Ty Bowman. Those pieces, they're all fun pieces. They all fit intellectual brutality. They're all incredibly smart kids, and they're all working incredibly hard. What's been cool for me to see is how welcoming our returning guys have been to them and how good of a mesh we're starting to have. I think EJ has really come out of his shell. I think it would be amazing to some people who knew him maybe in the last couple of years. Like the dude's got a pickleball group, he's got a movie watching group, they got an escape room group. Like he's always organizing something and taking our team somewhere. I mean, they're spending so much time together. And connection wins championships. Like when everything else is equal or even close, like that's something that can help us. Because we tell our kids all the time, like when that game's on the line, like don't be looking to a coach, man. Look to each other. We're going to be a sideline away. Y'all are going to have to win it together.
Yeah, I love that. Being an extension of yourself, and it really doesn't matter what the sport is. When a coaching staff can say that, I think that's when you've built a positive culture. When, like you said, they're not looking to you, they're looking to each other. And when you're standing on the sideline and, during a timeout, maybe you go to say something or somebody goes to say something, you hear one of the guys say it to another guy. And it's when you realize that your words have gotten through, filtered through all of the other nonsense that's around, and reached this person in such a way that they're doing that. Have you had moments, recent moments, be it in practice or film study or even last season, where you feel like a message that you are pushing through and beating through and weeks are going by and you're going, are the guys hearing this? Are the guys taking it in? Is it making sense to them? And then all of a sudden you saw it in action, you saw somebody say it. Did you have a moment like that?
Yeah, we've had a lot of around here, and maybe in the last 2 years more so. But there's an interesting story about a stone cutter, that
Okay.
swings his axe at the stone 100 times, and on the 101st swing, it cracks the stone. And, it appears that the 101st swing did that, but we all know it's all the ones that came before.
Right.
And so when you're taking over a program in 2019, you go back, and we had a group of kids that was doing everything we asked. And we were still 0-9 at that point in the season. And it was just hard. It was hard because they were working their butts off and they weren't getting paid. They weren't getting the reward of a victory. And, ended up winning the last 3 in that year and felt like that was something that really propelled us. But that was a group of people coming together and realizing that all those swings at that rock were going to make a difference if we kept swinging. And there was even times last year where we'd have close games. We had a great stretch of games last year. I think it went Tulane, SMU, and UTSA. And Tulane, we lost by 2. SMU, we lose by 5. So you lose by a total of 7 points to the 2 teams that end up playing in the championship game. And that is heartbreaking when you put your heart and soul into something and you don't come out with the result you want. So that was it to me. Like, that's like, guys, look, we still got to keep swinging. We are not where we want to be as a program, but thank God we aren't where we used to be, man. All y'all's hard work has got us to this point today, and we got to keep going.
So the question is, if after 100 swings, the 101st breaks the rock, but you can't do it without the first 100, what number swing do you think Rice is on in football?
Well, we've broken through several things. And so, like, are you asking, like, what swing are we on for winning the conference championship? I guess we'll have to talk after the season. But we're still swinging, I promise you that. And we put enough swings in to earn the opportunity to talk about it. And again, I don't think you have to look any further than Tulane and SMU last year to know that we are on the cusp of something really special. And I just think we got the right group to do it this year.
And when you look at this group, like you mentioned, quarterback E.J. Warner coming over from Temple, how easy was it to, I mean, you got to change the color, but he went from being an owl to being an owl. And in this conference, I don't think we talk about it enough. There's 3 owls in this conference. There's FAU, there's Rice, and there's Temple. So, Coach, your thoughts on that? Does that mean anything at all to you, knowing that, I mean, I guess if there was like a hoot or some type of call that Temple did and FAU did, you could use it to your advantage if you're on the road, if you were to play them in games coming up here in the future. But what's it like to be one of 3 owls, number one? And what was the conversation like? Was there any joke with E.J. Warner saying, well, you're already an owl, just come down to nicer weather?
I probably did say that to him. I'm not certain, but I flew up to Philly and had a chance to go hang out with him around their campus and spent some good time with him up there and tried to make him realize that as much as not changing the mascot, there's a lot of things that wouldn't have to change as well. We're a West Coast offense, but we still had very similar pass concepts and the ability to give him a lot of tools and try to give him even more tools and more freedom. It was our goal. And back to the Owls, though, the big thing for me is I'm in such a habit of just ending a presser with like "Go Owls," and I'm at media day last year and I felt like I needed to qualify that. Like, no, go Rice Owls. Like, yes, those Owls.
Yeah, just do the Owls thing and then point to the R on your chest. That's exactly what you have to do.
I might do that leaving the stage this year.
Yep. Yeah, that's you got. And if you do that, I want a little copyright TM. You see me out there, I want you to go like this and then point. I'll know that it's for me. So here with Mike Bloomgren once again, the Rice Owls head football coach, in our preview of Rice's upcoming 2024-25 season and overall coverage of the American Athletic Conference that we've been bringing you since before the conference had a name and a logo. So you mentioned the new commissioner, Tim Pernetti. 2-part question. Your thoughts, albeit a shorter amount of time than other head coaches, but what your experience was like with Mike Oresco, the first ever commissioner of the American, and your thoughts on Tim Pernetti and his leadership as we step forward.
Yeah, so I think talking about Mike, there was something to the audacity that he had to say that we are a power conference. Like, we are one of those conferences. And then it took the coaches and the student athletes, which I think Mike would always tell you, to back that up. And when they did, it just allowed him to have so much momentum and to really keep this thing pushing forward. I'm very thankful for what he did. It's one of the things that made it so attractive and made us so thrilled to become part of this conference. The landscape has obviously changed as he steps down and as the Pac-12 erodes and some of those things. I don't know if that makes my Pac-12 rings more or less valuable nowadays. I don't know. But anyway, talking about Tim has been awesome. Like
Yeah.
getting a chance to meet him at the Fiesta Summit in Arizona and hearing his vision. He jumped on a call with us as coaches, allowed us to ask some questions because there's so many things being talked about right now that some of us just need answers. And I felt like some of us maybe even needed guidance of like, hey, when we are asked this question, where does the conference stand? Where do you want us to say we are and where you want us to go? And he was very clear and direct with that, and that makes me excited. It's excited to hear him talk about things in addition to. Like, at no point do we want to step away from FBS football and the ability to play for a championship and get into the playoff. But if there's something else that's another playoff that makes sense in addition to that, he's up for it and he's up for the conversation. And so again, like, he made this statement, I thought this was profound. He said, "There's no way anybody convinced me that Mar football is bad football. Like, Mar football is good, and it's good for football, and it'll be fun for fans as well as players and coaches."
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that's really important. You looking at when you talk about going out there and Mike talking about this conference as a power conference and the success that you've had, to go back in your history as a grad assistant when you started coaching, you were at Alabama from 1999 to 2001, and you talked about the fact that Rice is 3-0 all time against Alabama. So to know that that's where you started your career and Rice is undefeated against Alabama, is that a little feather in the cap for you, or is it still a little bit of roll tide?
No, look, I wasn't part of those teams that beat Alabama, and at no point do I want Paul Feinbaum or anybody else from Alabama calling and harassing me right now, right? Like, if we earn the right to play Alabama someday, then we'll take on that big monumental program that they've created there at that time. But look, I was part of that program. That was an awesome time to be there.
Yeah.
First year, got to go to the Orange Bowl, won the SEC, beat Florida and Steve Spurrier, went into the Orange Bowl and played Tom Brady in Michigan. Like, what a fun time, and those are great memories, and still have a lot of friends from there. But no, I'm certainly not going to do that comparison right now.
So you talked about, I wonder if my Pac-12 rings have the same amount of meaning to them, validity with the Pac-12s. But see, here's the thing about the Pac-12, and Mike, I don't know if you caught this, but the Pac-12, they haven't completely said it was dead. Now, in the media, they've said it was dead, but the logo, the name, the fact that Oregon State and Washington State made a deal with the Mountain West but didn't officially join the Mountain West, something inside of me screams that some of this movement is temporary. I really feel like Cal and Stanford to the ACC is a temporary move. I think it's a Band-Aid, and within the next few years, we'll see an iteration of a Western football conference that will be there. So my two-parter to you is, did you ever think we'd be here? I mean, being at Stanford and spending those years there that you did you ever think we live in a world without a Pac-12 or a Pac in general? And second part to it is, do you agree with me that whatever's going on right now that seems very strange and a lot of miles, that somehow, some way, somewhere, someday, there will be a Pac again?
I think the landscape would point towards the possibility of there being a Pac. The fact that we are still allowing them to vote in our conference, our national conference decisions, even as a two-team conference at this time, there's got to be some stuff going on underground that maybe I don't quite know all the details about. But I do know this: the acting commissioner and Teresa Gould, she's as sharp as they come. And if anybody can give them a chance to resurrect this thing, and I think you made the reference to our conference coming like a phoenix back from the ashes multiple times. Like, she just might be able to do this, and I'm not sure what direction it would go. I can tell you that from 7 years at Stanford, I thought we had some long plane rides, whether it was playing Duke once a year or playing at Notre Dame. To do that week in and week out would be something different now. So I don't know if that's a long-term move for those schools or not. I certainly hear the stuff going on with the Big 12 right now, and that's really interesting. I still think back to 2011 when we were going from the Pac-10 to the Pac-12, and there was a lot of talk of Texas joining the Pac-12 at that time, and they just couldn't get things worked out with, I think it was Texas and Oklahoma potentially, and they couldn't get things worked out with the Longhorn Network. So it's just crazy to see that thing go and become 12 teams and then be sitting here in 2024 with two teams, because that was a cool conference to be a part of for a long time.
Yeah, and you talked about your 7 years that you were out. at Stanford, and looking at that time that you were there, 2011 to 2017, during that time period, and obviously like right around that area, the name Andrew Luck was high and mighty. What can you say about Andrew Luck and the quarterback that he was at Stanford, the quarterback that he continued to be with the Colts, and still to this day something that just, I understand it health wise, but at the same time it just like shook the NFL that a guy who's not even 30 years old said, "Hey, I've had a nice run. I'm going to go coach now."
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't want to talk about any of those personal decisions because we've talked since then and got a chance to be in Vegas when he got inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame, which was just really cool as a coach and to watch him get recognized for all that he did. He was exceptional in every way. He was exceptional in how he prepared. We could put so much on him. He allowed us to really build the system that we run today and show us that somebody in college football was capable of it. I mean, he did more at Stanford than we did in our offense with the Jets the year before in terms of kills and alerts and taking more things to the line of scrimmage. And just a phenomenal leader of men. There's two examples I could tell you. And the first one is, I'm in the huddle at spring football, the first day, first practice, and the linemen are bickering back and forth about something that happened on the prior play. And he goes, "Shut up, shut up, shut up!" And like the huddle was like, boom, like it was his huddle, and you were like, "Oh, yep, that's that guy. He's the alpha. I got it." And then there's a time in 2011, and we're at USC. Both teams are undefeated, and I think we're tied up, and there's about 2 minutes to go in the game, and it's kind of the famous play that Gruden had on his show, if you remember, before Andrew got drafted. It was Spider 2 Y banana, and he threw it to the backside, and it ended up going back for 6. Do you remember the play?
I'm thinking about it right now, and I'm like, I remember Gruden showing the breakdown of it, but I'm not remembering that play.
Yeah, Gruden was like, "It's not part of the read. What are you doing?" I mean, all this. And it was right. I mean, in fairness, Gruden was absolutely right. But Andrew comes to the bench, and he slams his helmet, and he's like, he's like anybody. He's like, "Holy cow, I can't believe I just did that." Now USC's up 7. He slams his helmet one more time, and all of us on the offensive bench are kind of watching. And he goes, "Flush it." He stands up. He walks over to the offensive line. He goes, "My bad. Look, we're going to go down and score, and we'll win this thing in overtime." And everybody was like, "Yep, we will." And it was one of those things where there was just so much confidence that exuded from Andrew to his teammates. And yeah, we go right down the field, we score, and then in triple overtime, we win the thing. So again, just an unbelievable leader, and I'm really thrilled that I had the opportunity to be around him.
And you talked about your time with the New York Jets, and I call the state of New York home, upstate New York. But your time with them, with that franchise, and in the NFL. What were those takeaways that you had from like any? I know you just told some really incredible come to life stories about Andrew Luck at Stanford. Any come to life stories with the Jets, and anything that you took there that you use today?
Oh, everything that I use today. There's so much of it. I went into that having been an offensive coordinator in Division II football and thinking I knew football, and I realized very quickly I didn't. And I got my PhD in football because of guys like Eric Mangini and Mike Tannenbaum giving me a chance, and working under Brian Schottenheimer and getting to learn from him. And then from an offensive line standpoint, my second year, Bill Callahan comes in, and Bill's such a master coach. I mean, he shaped so much of what I do from an organizational standpoint and a detail standpoint, and also always including the players in the conversation of how to get better and the best way to get something done. It's amazing the ownership that players feel when they know they're part of the decision of how to do it. And like he was just awesome. He was so good, and so very fortunate. And then also, like back-to-back AFC Championship games. Like if you are from upstate New York, you know that's not an every year occurrence or an every other year occurrence for the Jets. Matter of fact, I believe I saw something the other day that they are the team with the longest playoff drought amongst the major sports. And that, again, what a great time for us to be there. They went to the playoffs in '06 right before I got there, 7-8. We were building and almost went in '08, and then 9-10 to make those runs and to play the Colts in the AFC Championship game and be a game away from the Super Bowl, and the next year to play the Steelers. Like, so much fun. Such good times and great memories with great people.
Mike, before I let you go, a few points here. You spoke about the offensive side of the ball, and from Catawba College to Delta State to the New York Jets to Stanford, we know that you've done so much of your history as a coach on the offensive side. As a head coach now, because not everybody can translate to the overseer of all. So, having so much history in offense, what have you learned about defense? And do you feel that you are, at this point in your career, well versed in the world of offense, defense, and special teams?
Yeah, so I think you go back to how my career started, and at Florida State and Alabama, I was on the defensive side of the ball to start. And after playing tight end in college, so that it gave me a good little cross understanding of how this game works. So I'm very thankful for those times and the fact that I was on both sides of the ball. But when you talk about like now and how I fit in as a guy that just hopefully asks good questions and make sure our coordinators are covering the right things and the things that I feel are important in our program. I give great guidance, great expectations, but I have unbelievable coordinators. And you talk about those Jets connections. Our offensive coordinator, Marcus Tuiasosopo, was a quarterback for us in 2007.
Yeah.
Our defensive coordinator, Brian Smith, was my office mate in 2007 with the Jets. So those Jets ties run deep, and they are helping the Rice Owls today. And having those two men here, the other area is of course special teams and the importance of that. And the best special teams coordinator I've ever worked with was Pete Alomar, and we had an opportunity to hire him last year from Stanford. After that coaching change happened, and we jumped all over it. So I've now got three coordinators that I know have my back. Everybody in this program does. I mean, they're just so fun to work with. And we're always singing out the same hymnal. And that's as important as anything I can do as a head coach.
Yeah, and you, when you look at that and put it all together and all those ties and connections, the ties that you have uniquely when we go back to the schedule, the American Athletic Conference used to have Houston. The American Athletic Conference used to have UConn. You said, hey, we were going to play Army out of conference, and you got them in conference. So then here comes UConn later on in the season on October 26th on the road at Storrs. And then you have Houston on the road in Houston, Texas. But Rice is in Houston, Texas. So it's a stone's throw away. What can you say about those games that you have coming up, bringing UConn onto the schedule later in the season, and then Rice and Houston being right there sharing the same city?
Yeah, so starting with UConn, it was not supposed to be on the schedule.
Yeah.
It was on last year's schedule, and we had a return trip like 4 or 5 years from now. But they came down here and they beat us last year, and they earned a victory that, quite frankly, we thought if we played our best ball, we would have won the game, and we didn't. And so as we were looking for another game and I saw they had that opening, we wanted the opportunity to go play them again. Our team wants that opportunity. So we're jumping all over that. And then you talk about the school across town that's only 4 miles from us that used to be in this conference. And I can tell you that beating them last year and beating a Big 12 team and raising that Bayou bucket was a really big deal to our program. And we look forward to the opportunity to play them again this year and earn that right.
Here inside the Heritage Hill Studios, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, spotlighting the Rice Owls football program with head coach Mike Bloomgren here ahead of the 2024-25 season in our American Athletic Conference coverage. Before we jump into rapid fire and you and I get to put each other on the hot seat here for a second, I want to go back to your quarterback, E.J. Warner, coming over from Temple. You said he has a movie watching group. He's got a pickleball group. What have you seen about him and his leadership? And I'm going to ask you this, and maybe you can educate me. What is going on? I mean, pickleball existed, right? Historically, at some point. I don't know
Yes.
the year that it started, but I mean, in my hometown of Syracuse, New York, they took a baseball field, got rid of all that, put in pickleball courts. What's going on with pickleball, and what can you say about your quarterback and his movie group, his pickleball group, and do you know what movies they're watching? Is he a certain genre guy, or is he an everything guy? Bring me into the life of E.J. Warner as far as what you've seen this new leader do on your team.
So let's start with pickleball. There's so many questions you asked there, DT. So let's start with pickleball.
I did. I'm sorry. I was just pickleball got me rolling, and I wanted to go to movies too, but I got a lot of questions about pickleball because I've never played it before.
So I used to think that if I lost my Achilles, it would be the hoops. And now I think that pickleball is what's going to get me. And I hope it doesn't, but you know how it is. You get out there, you're competing. You're getting out there and your kids are running around the court. Your wife's out there kind of running her mouth sometimes, talking noise, and you just get really competitive. And it's a great way to compete. it has made it so I will probably never, not that I was some epic tennis player or something, but I'll probably never pick up a tennis racket again in my life. The ability to compete and understand the rules of that game, so fun. And playing 2-on-2 is just absolutely fun. Okay, so that's pickleball. Number one, I'm not trying to hype it up. I know there's a pro league or something going on right now that you can talk to somebody better than me about. But EJ's groups. Yeah, so playing pickleball, don't forget the escape room group because that's a thing.
Yes, yes.
That they do. But the movie that they went and saw last week, I cannot recall the name, but I talked to them afterwards. And they went to Red Robin, and they had a birthday. They had the waitresses sing to one of the guys in the group, and then they go see this movie. And the movie was in the same genre as I Am Legend, kind of like the end of the world type situation. It's something new, and they went and saw it in this 4D theater, and everything sounded like it was really cool and crazy. So that's what they chose that week. I don't know what other movies have been watched. I just happened to talk to them last week when they were watching that one.
I think it was A Quiet Place day one.
It was.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. So I just saw that myself. Did they like it?
It sounds like they really enjoyed it. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So right before rapid fire, now that we've talked about movies and pickleball, I'm going to hit you with an easy one, Mike. NIL, transfer portal. How's life as a head coach right now, and how are you handling and attacking this?
At no time did you really believe that was an easy question, did you?
I did not. I was just being facetious.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting. And recruiting has always taken a village. Now it just takes a little bit bigger village.
Yeah.
And, I think when you look at the fact that we lost 2 people from our team last year to the transfer portal, and we're the least in America by, I think, 5. And yet we still brought in 7 or 8 guys that we think will really affect the game for us. Actually, it's probably more like 10 or 11 guys that will affect the game from us. From the transfer portal, I'd say it's a net positive. NIL, I'm so excited that the college football game started back up. I'm so excited that these guys are able to get some money in their pocket. I'm also very curious about where we're going in 2025 with the House settlement and what that's going to do to college football and the landscape that we all know.
Yeah, no, it's a lot more on the plate of a head coach, which was already full. But you're down in Texas, so it's like if collegiate athletics was a buffet, this is a full plate. But people down in Texas, they stack it with cornbread and coleslaw and brisket and mac and cheese and all that stuff. It was already full before for you guys down there, and you know all about that. So let's jump into rapid fire. You and I can put each other on the hot seat. You can ask me anything. I have to answer it. But remember, Mike, I can ask you anything, and you have to answer it too. So you got the first question. What do you got for me?
Rank the top 4 teams in the American, in your opinion, going into the season.
Oh, my gosh. Well, it's been great, Mike. Have a good show. So I would say, I will say that I spend my time. And I have not finalized anything, so let me be clear about that in this conversation. Because to me, I want to do my due diligence of my due diligence. I will give you an answer. I'm not going to, give you a political answer here. But when I look at this conference, it's difficult because getting to know the teams and getting to know the caliber of student athlete, to me, it's not an easy thing to pick. I think UTSA, if you're going to put my feet to the fire right now in this moment, and I know we just talked about the rivalry and the things you can do together, I'm going to put UTSA at the top. And, Tulane did so much under Willie Fritz. He's not there. So that's a tough one for me to kind of navigate. But if I had to do it today, I would say UTSA. I would say UAB. I would look to you guys. I'm going to put you guys at 3 right now in this moment. And then at 4, it's like an arms race here. But at 4, Army's coming in. They're going to be new to it. 4, I would probably say, oh, Lord. This is a tough one. I'm looking at a couple of them. I'm going to say, I think South Florida can be a sleeper, but I'm going to say Memphis. Right now, it's really tough. Honestly, that is not an easy question because
I agree.
What'd you say?
I agree. It's not easy.
No,
because those are all solid teams you named, and I think the Memphis, South Florida, with the NIL opportunities that they've been provided, like they've certainly brought in some talent that maybe none of us really know the sum of yet. it's it's a great league, and I do think that's a very tough question.
Yeah, it's and the thing is like when Chuck Sullivan sends over the media poll, which he's already sent it, like I will go up to the last second. And I remember one year I was sitting on the plane. It was before we were taking off, and I was like, okay, I got to make sure I do this because it's got to be in. And I'm moving teams, and like before we took off, I was like, I moved it again, and then I moved another one, and then I hit send, and I'm like, I hope it went through. So I will be taking my time with it. But yeah, I mean, I do think you guys were a sleeper, of course, to a lot of people last year. And I think that this year you may still be flying under the radar in certain respects. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen. I do know this to anybody in the media that picks Charlotte last, Biff Poggi will always talk to you. And I can tell Biff I did not. So that's, a bit, and we got a good relationship. My question to you, Mike, if you had to switch places with another head coach in the American Athletic Conference today, what team whose roster you know of right now would you take over?
Oof. I ain't leaving my team. I love these guys, man. This 2024 Rice House football team is special.
You're not gonna. All right, so you gave me. You
No,
gave me.
I got to give you an answer.
You
In
got to
fairness,
give me
I
an
got to give
answer.
you
Yeah.
one. With the players that I know are returning, I think
Yes.
having Seth Hennigan and having a lot of weapons, I think Memphis is the place. I'd tag out with Ryan for a little bit, I think.
Okay. All right. All right. Fair enough. What's your second one for me?
Next question for you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many games did you get to see of the Rice House last year?
Oh, so last year I'd like to go see one on site. Let me say that I didn't see as many as I wanted to see. I try to tape and go back and watch because I'm usually at a game somewhere. And so I would prefer to see some on site. Last year it was less than I wanted to. This year I will be more closely connected to it. I will say that. And I really, I mean, I'm an honest person on and off the air. I really wish that I had seen more of you guys at the beginning of the season and what was kind of happening then to see the story of how you finished the season. I would have liked to see more of a throughout, but I appreciate you asking me these true hot seat questions because I know that like a few weeks in or by mid-season, you're going to ask me how many games I've watched, and I'm going to make sure I have a good answer for you.
Good.
So my question back to you also, just the accessibility. So Tim Pernetti, making those games as accessible as we can is also a huge help because I'm one of those, I have YouTube TV, and I am one of those people that will notoriously tape like 7 to 11 games a week and just want to go back and see as much. I'm a junkie, like when it comes to football. If I was with you and you said like, no recorder, no pens, no nothing. Like you could do an interview with me, but we're going to go into film study and you're going to come. If you brought me on campus, because I'm not your typical media person, and you said, I'm going to let you see everything and I'm going to trust you not to report on any of this stuff that you're going to see today, I would absolutely just want to be there to soak it up, ask questions, and then like after it all, have dinner with you and the staff and just kind of pick your brain.
Yeah, come to training camp. Come down here whenever.
All right. Well, I'm going to take you up on that. I'm going to remember that
Let's
you
do it.
said that, Mike. So my second question for you, man, you have really given these to me. All right, Mike. So if you could be the head coach of any NFL team this season, which NFL team not named the Kansas City Chiefs would you become the head coach of?
Yeah, those are the ones that I think you'd want to jump all over. Because I've gotten to know Joe Burrow a little bit through these years, and from him throwing with my son and a few things like that, I would say that I'd take the Bengals and take a good run at them and see if we could find our way in the Super Bowl again.
All right, I like that. You got one final question for me. What is it?
Well, I don't like putting you on the spot with all these, but I want to see. Let's say it this way: outside of the Rice Owls, who
Okay.
are the top three offensive players in this conference going into 2024?
My goodness. The prognostication of this for me, the top three best players going into this season. I mean, and you said offensively,
Yes.
or just in general.
Well, you go general.
Okay. I mean, I want to give you a coach's answer, and the coach's answer that I really want to give you is that I don't want to give awards to people that I haven't seen yet. Like I want to actually like see. Well, not that I haven't seen them, but I want to let them kind of have their run at a couple games because that is honestly that is a really tough question for me to answer, and I'm not trying to not answer it. It's I do preseason stuff, but I feel like I always tell people this. I say, I'll do my preseason prediction, but then I want to have the ability to do my 3 to 4 week in prediction of what I can say about who's on what team and what I'm seeing from those specific players at the time. Because I think it's really, really hard to say, like going into fall camp, yeah, I'm definitely going to choose this guy, or I definitely think it's going to be this guy. I mean, I told you that I told you some of the, and there's a bunch of, there's quarterback changes too. And
Let me do this.
yeah,
I don't want to do that to you now.
no,
I
because
want to
I
give
mean,
you a
and my thing
softball.
is too, is there's, could have given you this answer. I, if we were last season going in, there's a bunch of guys that I rooted for and backed in the NFL draft. And even if they were taken late or taken in the seventh round, there are certain guys that like you asked me this question during the season or at some point last year, and there are guys that I think went to teams, Michael Pratt going to the Green Bay Packers, that I think are steals. And so when you ask me that question for 2024, my head is going, oh, if you ask me 2023, but that's because I had time with those guys too.
Yeah, 2023, I would have said Michael Pratt, Luke McCaffrey, Frank.
Okay. Okay.
You know,
All right.
that's where I would have went
Okay.
because Frank did so many dynamic things against us through the years. I kind of thought he was Superman. So that's what I would have said last year. This year is harder. So let me ask you this, and I'll change my question.
Okay.
What is your process to keep up with the transfer portal? I mean, we've signed the best class in Rice football history of high school kids, so we're
Yeah.
bringing in 20 kids there. Now we add 11 from transfers that played at other FBS. And now we're trying to go through our process of figuring out how to prepare for this team and see who might fit where, what are their talents, what are their skills, what are their best traits.
Yeah.
And we're watching film from all over America. How the heck are you trying to keep up with, say, 11 Division I transfers per team?
Yeah, it's really really difficult. I think the thing is I'm one of those people that will like check and check and check. Like I'll have a bunch of questions ready for media day, and then I will be checking in between teams that I'm talking with to make sure that coaches didn't get fired, coaches didn't leave, guys. Like I'm looking up guys going like, wait a second, did this guy go here? Let me just double check, and I'll be constantly looking at it, and I think it's the really difficult thing about it is if you, and this happened with a coach before, it's like if you blink, this guy was here and now he's not. And with the transfer portal being the way that it is, it's really difficult to, like KJ Jefferson, take for example, coming from Arkansas, right? Quarterback, he's going to be at UCF now. When I got
Yep.
KJ Jefferson's card, I got his autograph card in a pack that I pulled. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, I didn't really think anything of it at the time. I was like, I haven't covered KJ Jefferson, haven't interviewed him, yet, whatever. Put the card off to the side, talking to my buddy Jason Lucas, went to UCF. He's a big UCF fan. And we're talking about KJ Jefferson, and I'm sitting in the studio, and I grabbed the card off camera, and I was like, well, here's your guy right here. It's just like weird stuff like that. So, I mean, how do I pay attention to it? It's tough because within conference, this is the weirdest thing probably for me, is like watching a guy come into, and this is just making an example, but watching somebody come into American Athletic Media Day, right? So AAC kickoff last year wearing green, and let's say they're playing for Tulane, and then they come in this year and they're wearing navy for the Rice Owls, and then a couple of years from now they're in maroon for Temple. Like I think that's the weirdest thing for me when I see the guys I know and like we lock eyes and they come up to me and they're like, hey, what's up, Dan? How you doing? And we sit down and I'm talking to them about East Carolina's future, but I was talking to them about South Florida. Like it's just so how do I keep up with it? I don't know how anybody keeps up with it completely, because how many people are in, 1,000 at any given time, 2,000. So it's really, really difficult. I don't envy a coach. And I will say this to you in answer to your question, kind of overall. I am a person who believes that no matter what thing is going on outside that I have no control over, I am an honest, God-fearing, relationship building person, and I never think that that person will fail, because as long as you are being honest, you are being true, and you are doing everything that you can to show people that you are who you say you are, and you care about the relationship more than the story. I don't think that you can lose in the transfer portal. I don't think that you can lose in setting up interviews with coaches and student athletes. I don't think you can lose in business. When you care about relationships, I don't ever see that being a place of failure. And I think it's the one thing that will keep people going in a way where people will look at the relationship builders and go, how did you, through all of this tornado, look completely calm? And I think it's because when you build relationships, you don't have to worry about all of the ups and downs and around the corners, because true, honest relationships cannot be broken.
Couldn't agree more.
So with that being said, now I'm going to sit now when I see you at media day, we're going to sit down and I'm going to give you my list of
All right, fair enough.
of the three guys. But I mean, honestly, it is like I try to give it all time. And you hit me with these, which are fantastic. But to the people out there, I will be giving Mike an answer, even if we just do it on Instagram Live during AAC kickoff. Mike Bloomgren here, Rice Owls head football coach ahead of the 2024-25 season inside the Heritage Hill Studios on Wake Up Call. Mike, it is always my pleasure. I look forward to seeing you down in Texas. And I'm going to take you up on that opportunity. If schedules can align, then you and I would be more than happy to come out to camp.
That would be awesome. Thanks so much for your time, man. Go Owls.
There you go. He pointed to it. You saw that.